But I also knew that I was terrified to talk to people. And I made a decision. I'll never forget this. I made a decision one day. I'm like, there's only one way that I'm going to get ahead in life, and I've got to learn how to talk to people.
Really?
And I said, I'm going to get a job in a restaurant because I'm going to force, and I've consistently done that in my life. I've forced myself to do things that are uncomfortable, and it was uncomfortable for me at 20, 21 years old, somebody that could not, in high school or in the past, get up in front and talk to people. So I just threw myself into the situation, which I'm, I guess I do a lot of that, and walked into a restaurant in Memphis, Tennessee called Hops. We used to have one in Lafayette, and they were just opening their doors, and I filled out the application, put where I was from. The manager came out, and he said, "You're from Lafayette?" I said, "Yes, yes, sir." He said, "You're hired." I have no experience. He said, "You see all these people that are opening this restaurant? We're all from Lafayette."
We would like to thank our title sponsor, B1 Bank. B1 Bank knows that entrepreneurs like you are always thinking one step ahead. So you need banking solutions that can keep up. It begins with lending. Does your business need working capital or financing for new equipment? How about a real estate or a construction loan? Good news, the B1 lending team is ready to learn your goals and help you find the best lending option available. Now let's talk about uncomplicating your daily cash flow. B1 offers a full array of treasury management services that let you collect funds faster, pay funds more efficiently, and access your information with powerful online tools. Most importantly, B1 understands the value of working with local nonprofits to build a stronger community. They believe in giving back through hands-on involvement with their B1 Community Outreach Program because it's simply the right thing to do. B1 Bank. Be uncomplicated. To learn more, visit b1bank.com. Equal housing lender, member FDIC. Hello, I'm Andrew McClendon, your host of the NXT Entrepreneur Podcast. We're recording here from the Propel Productions podcast studio in Baton Rouge, and I'm happy to welcome our guest, Collin Bercier, serial entrepreneur and CEO and founder of Ounce of Hope. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So how did you guys do in the hurricane?
We were good. Lafayette dodged a bullet.
Yeah.
So, but my wife's family down in St. Charles Parish, they got hit pretty hard. So they were at our house for a little bit. But as of 2 days ago, I believe they have power. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's good. So some of you may recognize Collin's last name, Bercier, and connect it with a previous guest, your wife, Lauren, who is Something Borrowed Blooms is her business, and she came in here, and she is a complete rock star. And then she started talking about the rock star that you are in between breaks, and when she said, "Man, he is a hoot," I was like, okay, I got to talk with this guy. Then I started checking you out. So really interested in your entrepreneurial journey and all the different things that you've done, which I find fascinating. I do a lot of businesses, and it may be called a serial entrepreneur. They're kind of in the same general, category. And I'm really interested in talking to you because you've got, different businesses that seem disconnected to me, but we'll learn about that. But so I usually like to start out talking about the thing that our guests are doing now, which for you is Ounce of Hope. But I think what I'd like to do is kind of start from the beginning. And when I think of serial entrepreneurs, I've seen a common thread where they were entrepreneurial as a kid. And and so I was curious if that applied to you.
Yeah, it is. To start, again, my dad he has owned his own business since he was 22. And, you know, I grew up going to work with him, and I famously coined myself as the marketing department of his business.
Which was what? What was
I was stuffing envelopes.
Yeah, but what was his business?
So he owns a appliance and tire store in Crowley, Louisiana. He actually just sold everything and retired about 2 months ago. So, so, you know, there was not a summer since I was 9 where my dad wasn't dragging me to work. There wasn't really, I didn't have an option. So,
right.
And I appreciate that now, as much as I hated it back then.
Well, I mean, you learned work ethic, right?
Work ethic.
And, the value of $1.
Yeah. And then, you know, my mother, you know, who was contracted polio when she was 3, had some complications with that, then came down with MS and died from MS. But, you know, one of the things that I've always got from my mom was, you know, she never complained about it. Never. I don't ever remember. And it's the craziest thing to me still today that, you know, somebody who has MS, is wheelchair bound or on crutches, crutches all of her life since she was 3, never complained, never stopped, never, and was a social worker and a teacher, and did, what else? She was a hospice representative too. Like, all the things against her, and all she did was help people.
That's amazing.
It was, and it's been a big inspiration to me. Unfortunately, I lost her back in 2016, but as far as entrepreneurial goes, this is, you know, was diagnosed, and I'm going to lead into entrepreneurship with ADHD. But, you know, my first dose of entrepreneurship was, you know, I was diagnosed with ADHD when I was 5. I was put on Ritalin. I was on Ritalin till I was about 16, and I hated it, and I realized in my teen years that I didn't have to take it, and that people actually wanted to buy it. So that would be my first business, which, you know, it's probably
may or may not be legal.
May or may not be legal, or popular, but it is what it is.
Yeah. So, did you replace that with anything else?
Yeah. So, you know, growing up as a 15 onto my 20s with a mother who, you know, my parents were divorced, so my brother and I were her sole providers, and, you know, having to provide for the family, go to school, all those things as a teenager, and take care of a mother, you know, I was just very lost. I was mad. And so I did replace those things. I did try to pacify those things with drugs. You know, I was smoking weed, acid, you know, on. And then I finally got myself in a lot of trouble, kicked out of school, treatment twice. You know, those are things that I used to be ashamed of, but now they're things that actually drive me.
Yeah. Because,
you know, you have your piece of paper that has all the fancy things that I've done, but realistically, I've been kicked out of school. Kicked out of high school. I've been in 2 treatment centers for a total of 24 months of my life before I was 20 years old. I've got a GED from a treatment center that I did in a treatment center. I've been arrested 3 times. And I just, it does not, those things don't hinder me. They used to when I was younger.
Yeah, and they also don't define you.
They don't define
They define your past, maybe.
I enjoy this, and this might sound crazy, but I enjoy telling that story to people.
Yeah.
And talking to my employees and saying, look, I'm, you know, we're building a marijuana company here. There's no blueprint to it. You know, it's the proverbial jump off of a cliff and build the plane on the way down. And I just want you to know, like, I haven't had the best life, and I haven't been handed anything. I've been successful, but I also want to backtrack and contribute a lot of what I've learned in business and also with dealing people was in the hospitality business. I spent 10 years of my life in the bar and restaurant industry. And coming out of my second treatment center and moving to Memphis and starting to work again, I knew that after working for a few people, I was 21 at the time, I was like, man, I freaking hate not making the decisions. I can do this better than this guy. And but I also knew that I was terrified to talk to people. And I made a decision. I'll never forget this. I made a decision one day. I'm like, there's only one way that I'm going to get ahead in life, and I've got to learn how to talk to people.
Really?
And I said, I'm going to get a job in a restaurant because I'm going to force, and I've consistently done that in my life. I've forced myself to do things that are uncomfortable, and it was uncomfortable for me at 20, 21 years old, somebody that could not, in high school or in the past, get up in front and talk to people. So I just threw myself into the situation, which I'm, I guess I do a lot of that, and walked into a restaurant in Memphis, Tennessee called Hops. We used to have one in Lafayette, and they were just opening their doors, and I filled out the application, put where I was from. The manager came out, and he said, "You're from Lafayette?" I said, "Yes, yes, sir." He said, "You're hired." I have no experience. He said, "You see all these people that are opening this restaurant? We're all from Lafayette." Okay. So I got the job there, and from there, I worked in restaurants in Memphis, moved back to Lafayette, and got jobs in bars downtown. If anybody remembers Lafayette, they've been out to Club 410, and just learned how to deal with the public and solve problems and talk to people.
So were you able to hold on to your sobriety through that environment? Because that's a tough place to
held
push
on to my sobriety from the age of 19 to 25. And, sobriety is different for everybody.
Yeah.
My sobriety was also always about control. I never could control it, and so I was scared of it. And then, I was 25 in Memphis at University of Memphis, having a good time. I started drinking again, and I actually didn't use marijuana again until I was about 31, just for whatever reason. Well,
you had mentioned marijuana a couple of minutes ago, referring to your business, which is Ounce of Hope, which we're going to get to, just to make that connection. But I really wanted to take it from where you're at now in your story to how you got in your first business.
Mm-hmm. The solar business.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was 2007, and I was bartending, but at the same time, I was seeing that the state of Louisiana was through legislation, was about to put into place the best rebate program in the United States, and on top of that, the federal government also had so they had a federal tax credit program. So from the state, you would get 50% rebate check back from them when you filed your taxes.
For the investment.
For the full investment.
That the homeowner made.
The homeowner.
Yeah. So in other words, when the homeowner got the state and federal credits, then it made it affordable, which
it did.
Then made them more willing to
It did.
invest
It really
in that.
helped
Yeah.
help sell the product.
So you did it. You identified that opportunity and you got in it. But
8 years. Very lucrative too.
So
fantastic. I loved it.
So you were a one-man band starting out?
Yeah, one-man band starting out. Again, threw myself into it. Didn't know anything about electricity or solar or pulling permits or all, building codes and all that. But, I'm very resourceful. I can put the team together to get things done, and I can hire for the things that I don't know how to do, and that's exactly what I did.
Yeah, but to sell it, you had to learn about it.
I had to learn about it. But,
So,
internet's great. There's some solar schools that I went to, and again, I putting myself in front of people, and I didn't sell anything the first month or so. I didn't know what I was doing, but, you know, learned the ropes and became a great salesman. And, you know, I made a very lucrative business out of it.
That's fine. And so I was looking at your timeline on that and curious, because I know that in some of the other businesses that we're getting ready to talk about, you had actually had an exit strategy, a sale, and a nice windfall. But this one, I was curious if that was a sell, but that wasn't the case.
No,
right?
Unfortunately, that ended abruptly. You know, the state. There was always a problem in the solar industry on the state side where they didn't require us to account to them beforehand what the customer was going to be filing for. So at the end of the year, the state would just get all these tax rebate requests, and they're like, oh shoot, we got to get the money for it. And that kind of came to a head in 2015, 16, and they were $60 million over budget on the filing, and they just kind of cut out the whole thing, and it caused a lot of trouble. So the industry to the extent fell on its face. There are still some guys doing solar,
but without those abatements, people weren't going to make that investment. I mean, the payoff wasn't going to be there, right? I mean, the return on their utility savings versus their investment in the solar just wasn't going to happen without that.
It's a double-edged sword because, you know, without the rebates, obviously that payback is probably about 10 to 12 years. I hadn't looked at the cost of solar. I know it's come down drastically, but, you know, at the time with the rebate, your payback was like 2 years. And so you go from promoting a 2-year payback to now a 10 to 12-year payback. People don't want it, but the thing that is a shame is a lot of people don't realize that as you get older and you start thinking about retirement, your utility costs are the one thing that you can't really control. What the utility companies do is up to them. Yeah. So I would still buy solar.
Yeah, that's cool. So you're out of that business. It dries up. What's your next move?
Out of that business, and I think at the time, let's see, we sold that in 16. So at the time, I was involved with a coffee company, a coffee franchise, and also my partners and I were also involved in Planet Fitness.
Okay, franchises. So those were going on while you had solar things.
Yeah,
so tell us about how you got in the Planet Fitness business and you know how you grew it and that experience.
So. Before I got into Planet Fitness, about a year before I got into that, I was actually looking at opening a few Anytime Fitnesses in, you know, underserved communities that didn't have gyms at the time. And then a friend of mine found out that I was trying to open gyms, and he said, "Hey, man, I'm looking at Planet Fitness. I know the guy that owns one, and we've been talking. I want you to look at this." And I went and looked at it, and I was like, "Holy moly, this is I said, yeah, let's do it.
So they're cool places. They're big places. Cheap, $10 a month.
So, you know, I exited that in 16, so I don't know what the current rates are, but at the time you can get a membership for either $10 or $20 a month and then pay an annual fee of either $30 or $40. And those were the revenue streams. You know, it was real easy. It was either the customer's paying monthly and annually.
So I looked at it. I belonged there for a while, and I'm always studying a business and trying to figure out how they possibly make money. And for me, it was $10 a month, which I don't think they had any annual fee at a couple of years ago where I was. And I'm like, how does this math work? And I started to try to, look at how many people. And I kind of came up with this thought that maybe part of that model is that they're kind of making it pay off the people that actually aren't in the gym, right?
It's actually true.
Yeah. And that it's cheap enough. It's cheap enough per month that people will say, okay, well, I've stopped going for a few months. I'm off my routine. Maybe I'll get back. So I'll just keep paying.
So typically in most gyms, you're going to see about 60% of your base doesn't show up consistently. Yeah. And so, Planet Fitness really caters to a portion of the population that either are not really into gyms, or are not going to pay $40 to $50 or go to your high end $100 gyms, your $10 or $20. And so, to give you an example, my Lake Charles store was my first one we opened, and that when we sold it, we had over 10,000 members.
Oh my goodness!
And globally across, when we sold that, we had 5 locations open and a 6th one being built. And so I want to say globally, we had about 45,000 members total, maybe more than that. But yeah, and the other thing, like you just said, there's nothing that says I've given up more than canceling a $10 membership. So you just never did that. But look, people would strictly get a $10 membership to take showers too, like truckers and stuff like that. And
really?
Yeah. It catered to so many different people.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So what kind of investment do you have to make in a Planet Fitness location?
Yeah. So, you need about, anywhere from $750,000 for a build out, because you're going into 20,000, anywhere from 20,000. And I think they've scaled them down now. They're doing, smaller gyms, but, at that time we were doing 20,000 square foot facilities. So you need about $750,000 to $1 million on the build out. And then you need about another $1 million for, your equipment.
Okay. And as that's with you leasing
equipment.
Well, leasing
or
the space
yes,
as well.
Yes.
So you're leasing 20,000, you're putting 750 into.
Yeah, and we had a hard time doing that. In Lake Charles specifically, some of these big groups, some of these big real estate groups that have never heard of Planet Fitness were like, "What? No, we're not letting you come in our space." And so we fought a lot, and then. Once they got to know us and see the foot traffic, they're like, "Oh, we got properties in Sulphur, and we got so it's challenging."
When you, because you were successful with your solar business and you made money, that's what set you up to be able to take part in this next adventure. Is that right?
Solar was the turning point in my life financially.
Yeah. So when you started solar, did you think like, I'm going to own multiple businesses, or were you just really going for one business initially?
Yeah. What I've done and accomplished has never been in the cards for me. Again, my background besides the fancy paper, that was never my thought. And after I did, and again, I started my solar business. I had no money. I was literally printing I think they're 24 by 12 yard signs, and I'd print "Go Solar Louisiana" on it 3 times and cut them into 3 and go stick them out around Lafayette and everywhere I would travel. And that's really where it started. There was, social media there was no advertising on social media. So that's where all that started. And
so you did it by yourself, scrappy, but once you started to get cash flow, it looks like what happened is you said, I'm curious. I'm interested.
I'm crazy enough to try anything. Yeah. One of the things that, back to my dad, I live by this. And, one of the things my dad taught me was, and one of the things he always said is, the only thing they can tell you is no.
Yeah.
And I live by that. I know now that the only person that gets to decide whether I try something or I do something is me. And I'm limited by myself, not with what anybody else has done or thinks.
Yeah.
If I cared about what people thought, I would definitely not be sitting across the table from you.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure how to take that, but but I did send a message to Lauren this morning, LinkedIn. I told her I was talking to you today, and what made you tick, kind of thing, and she made it clear, like, he doesn't really care a lot what people think about it.
She said that?
Yeah.
Guys.
So, anywho, let's take a quick break, get a word from our sponsor, and we'll be right back. we would like to thank MBD Automation for their support of the NXT Entrepreneur Podcast. MBD Automation is a mechanical install contractor with a program-centric focus. So what do these guys do? They install conveyor systems, VRCs, platforms, singulators, sorters, and all sorts of other types of automated equipment. Who do they work for? They work for systems integrators, manufacturers, and end users in fulfillment centers, airports, mail processing facilities, and projects in the defense industry. MBD Automation works for numerous Fortune 500 companies across the United States and has a list of international clients that they perform work for in the U.S. as well. If MBD Automation can help you on your next project, you can find them online at mbdautomation.com. And we are back with Collin Bercier. Collin, we're talking about your entrepreneurial journey, and where we left it, you were in the Planet Fitness franchise business, and you and your partners grew that thing. I mean,
yeah, over 4 years, we ended up with 5 locations running and a 6th one being built when we sold. Franchising is, a lot of the franchising, a lot of the work is done for you. You just really need to pick the right spots and execute on that. That's not all that's to it, but a lot of the standard operating procedures and your equipment that you need and all those things are done. It's very, very different than building a business from the ground. But yeah, we were 4 years into it, had no intention on selling it, and then a private equity group out of Austin came around. I think they had $100 million, and they were buying up groups like us that had multiple locations, and they
were rolling up Planet Fitness in particular.
They purchased us for about $18 million.
Whoa!
Yeah, it was awesome.
So, take care of your debt, split it with your partners. Yeah. You got a great payday.
Yeah.
And what's next?
What's next is. It's an ambivalent feeling because, we didn't exit with enough money to never work again.
Right.
But we did exit with $2 to $3 million a piece, give or take some real estate. And so, the first year is pretty cool, and then you realize, like, oh man, the thing that was paying all my bills is no longer coming in, and now I've got to build another business. So it's back to the drawing board, and which would lead me into what I'm doing now.
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting because you could say, when you're presented with that offer that you can't refuse, you have to say, like, okay, I got a great business, and it's cash flowing, paying the bills, like you say, and we can keep growing this. We can keep scaling this, which you were in the middle of doing.
We were. Well,
but it's kind of a discounted cash flow kind of thing where you're saying, yeah, but will an offer 5 years from now or 10 years from now, all things being equal, going to be there?
And I had 5 partners. Yeah. So a lot of different opinions there. Yeah. And gym industry in general, is this going to last another 5 years for us? Yeah. Why not take the money and all go do something that we want to do?
Look at the last 18 months. With
devastating.
COVID, right?
Yeah.
So a pretty good business to not be in, given the option that you could have sold before that for a nice
and just shout out to Planet Fitness Corporate in New Hampshire. One of the best experiences I've ever had.
Yeah.
You could call up the CEO anytime and talk to him and fly out there and have a meeting with him. It was really, really, really nice dealing with that. So
yeah, it sounds like it was a great experience.
It was.
But, so during that time, you also had some other things going, some other franchise things. You did some coffee?
Yeah, I did some coffee franchises. I did a donut franchise.
Now, what what's going through your mind with that? I mean, you know, because there was some overlap with the solar, the Planet Fitness, the coffee, the donuts.
We were at one point. I was four Planet Fitness locations, 3 coffee franchises, and a donut shop at one time. And
it seems like there's kind of some battling things there between the donut shop and the Planet Fitness.
Yeah, the donut shop was very profitable. You know, we were doing $600,000 a year out of a donut shop, and you know, it's just hard. That's one of those businesses where you really need to be there all the time, and I couldn't be. So it just came. You know, 3 years into it, I was like, man, I'm just not able to give this thing the time it needs.
Yeah.
And so I sold it to somebody.
Were you,
along with a coffee company too?
Yeah. So were you solo investors in those?
Yes.
Coffee and donuts? Mm-hmm. So so you had...
But at the same time, you know, I knew what I wanted to do. I was also entering through all these sales, I was also chasing the LSU grow facility license. So I knew that was the direction I was going. So selling everything, taking some money off the table.
Yeah, so it gets to a point where, like you just mentioned, you identify this medical marijuana license.
And to back up a little bit further, I remember, this is probably 8 years ago, sitting at lunch with a friend and, you know, just kind of reading about what was going on in Colorado and legalization in California. And I told him, I said, I'm going to own a dispensary one day. So I've always known this is the industry I wanted to be in. And I finally was able to do it in Louisiana, not in Louisiana, but chase that license and then to go on into Memphis.
Yeah, so the initial thought was get licenses here in Louisiana. That didn't work out.
It didn't.
And so you pursued a dispensary. And
so after going after the LSU license, and we came, you know, my team that I put together, we came in second. I will say that I am, hindsight's 2020. I'm glad we did not get that license because the program today is what it is. But you know, after, you know, that was 8 months of my life and quite a bit of money chasing that thing. And, you know, I was devastated after I didn't get it. Again, hindsight's 2020, but I knew what I wanted to do. And, you know, I don't know if we went over this yet, but I spent 2 to 3 years in Memphis, Tennessee, going to college. So I had a lot of contacts there, and, you know, I still visit Memphis twice a year to see friends. And, you know, I just sat back after losing that license for a couple months, and I had in my head what I wanted to do. And, you know, I had gotten told, no, I couldn't do it. And so, you know, as a true entrepreneur, I said, yeah, I'm doing it, you know. So at the time, Tennessee enacted their hemp pilot program, and it was actually a very liberal program as far as, you know, the licenses. You know, I walked into Memphis, Tennessee, and for less than $2,000, I was opening a 10,000 square foot grow facility and a 750 square foot dispensary. And now 2 years later, we're opening our second dispensary.
Okay. So let's talk about the grow facility, because you describe your business as a CBD dispensary, and I'm trying to find my notes here.
So we're an indoor aquaponic farm and dispensary. Dispensaries now, but
farm.
Aquaponic
okay, so
farm.
For those of us not familiar with it, make the connection for us between the aquaponic farm part of it and the dispensary part of it.
Sure. So I'll explain aquaponics first.
Sure.
So aquaponics is it's a growing method, and a lot of people have heard about hydroponics.
Right.
And so the major difference between aquaponics and hydroponics is in the hydroponic setting, the nutrients that you feed your plants are typically store-bought. And on the aquaponic side, we farm raise indoor ornamental koi and tilapia fish, and we collect their poop and we turn it into nutrients for our plants. So we make our own nutrients.
So the fish are over here.
Fish are over here. I have 4 2,400-gallon tanks with ornamental koi and two koi, 2 tilapia. All of their waste comes through a filter.
And those particular fish must be like the best fertilizer for this. Or, I mean,
it's the best. It's natural.
Right. But I mean, those particular species of fish.
Those particular species of fish were chosen for a couple of different reasons. I can get into that if you'd like, but the tilapia themselves are very, very hardy fish.
Yeah.
They're very resilient. They can take a lot of temperature swings. It's very odd for them to die.
Yeah.
I complicated the system a little bit more with the koi, but our 10,000 square foot grow facility is also a showcase for us. The customer can go online and schedule a tour of our facility.
Oh, wow.
So it's also kind of like the brewery model. We want the customer to come in, see the fish, see the plants, feed the fish, see how we extract, see how we formulate, and possibly buy something on the way out in our dispensary. So I 100% believe once you see our methods of growing and dispensing, and you feed our fish and see our processes, it's very hard for you to go somewhere else and choose another product.
What I was reading about your business is that experience that you just described is very important to you. And you guys sound like you do a really good job just with, the tour and the atmosphere.
You can walk in, our dispensaries are so inviting and so comfortable. I mean, it is crazy the things that people will tell you inside these dispensaries, things that they probably don't even tell their own doctor. It's a strange thing, but we moved away from walking into a head shop or a place full of bongs with tie-dye shirts and the guy behind the counter is blasted, which, look, there's a time and place for all that. There's a market for that. We are not that.
Right.
We cater to everybody, and when you come in, you're comfortable, we're knowledgeable, you're going to get a ton of information. We're going to send you home probably with some free samples of our products. Because I didn't tell you this yet, but in this particular industry, we're not allowed to advertise on social media. There's a lot of things we can't do. Banking's hard, credit card processing's hard. Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, can't run ads.
Not allowed.
No, not at all. In fact, you get your account shut down.
Yeah.
So this industry it's the love of my life, but it's the most challenging thing I've ever been
That's
involved
fascinating. In. So what is the importance to you or the consumer about whether it's aquaponics or the marijuana's grown on the ground? Why does that matter?
Good question. So there's multiple different methods of growing, and I don't think anyone in particular is better than the other. For us as a brand with Ounce of Hope, we find that our customers appreciate what we are doing because this thing has many legs to it. Our grow facility is all organic. We can't call ourselves organic. We have to stay away from that word, but the fish provide, and the nutrients being derived from fish, and also our extraction process that we use to formulate our full spectrum products. We only use heat and high pressure to extract the oils out of the plant. So that plant never touches any chemicals for that extraction. So it just sets us apart as a brand, and the customer really appreciates those two aspects of our business. And it gives us, something else to talk about when the customer comes into the dispensary or the grow facility. You can go to any dispensary and you're going to hear pretty much the same things. Here are these strains. This one's grown in Oregon outdoors. This one's grown in California indoors, or whatever it may be. When people come in our dispensary, This one was grown in Memphis, Tennessee, under LED lights. The nutrient source are ornamental koi and tilapia. This particular product was extracted with just heat and pressure. There was no chemicals involved. And they're like, well, I've never heard that before.
That's so okay. So cost-wise, the cost to do it the ounce of hope way that you just described versus grown in outdoors in Colorado or whatever. I mean, it seems like it seems like the cost would be higher.
It is initially higher. It is. You know, you're buying tanks, fish tanks, filters, grow beds, LED lights. There's electricity involved, obviously. But again, in our particular setting versus outdoor, let's just talk about indoor versus outdoor. You know, the outdoor grower is really limited to the season. You know, they're going to plant, let's say Louisiana. They're going to plant in May, I believe, and they're going to harvest in October, November. And hopefully nothing ever goes wrong. Hopefully we don't have a hurricane.
Right.
Hopefully there's not flooding, frost. Whereas indoors, we grow 365 days a year. There's always something growing in our facility. We're controlling the climate. We control everything. So not that we don't have problems. There's definitely, this is not foolproof, I'll tell you that. Right. We've had a very expensive learning curve. We knew that. But initially it is more expensive up front, but the payoff in the end is much, much, much better than growing outdoor. Specifically in the South, you know, I don't, if I had to grow outdoor in the South, I just wouldn't do it, to be honest with you. Yeah. It's very challenging.
So what's the challenge for you to manage this business from Lafayette? And, you know, I understand why you're there and the availability to get, you know, the license or the business license, but when it's so unique, the process that you described, what kind of challenges does that present to you, and how much time do you have to be there?
So I am typically in Memphis about 8 to 10 days a month. And I have to tell you that my operations manager, Cameron Hill, who is actually from Baton Rouge, who lives in Memphis, is the biggest backbone of our business. He comes from he has a marijuana grow background. He's got an aquaculture background with fish. And he's a local boy. So I ended up finding him through friends of friends. I convinced him to move back to Memphis. Actually, he lived in Memphis too at one point. He was actually at the time when I was introduced to him, he was in Oregon on a marijuana farm and was looking to come closer to home, back to Baton Rouge. And I said, hey man, I'm trying to do this in Memphis, Tennessee. You want to move? And he said, yes, I will move. He's a tremendous force in our business and really allows me to come back and forth and operate. The good thing too is that he also ran a small business of his in Baton Rouge for a little while, so he's got a lot of skill sets. You know, he knows how to deal with people. He's a millennial. He knows how to deal with millennials, which I'm learning about. Yeah, which is interesting too. You know, I spend most of my days on the phone, behind my computer, talking to wholesale partners. Building new relationships, setting up, you know, meetings, ordering, wear a lot of hats too. So, you know, Cameron, on top of, you know, operating the grow facility, right now we're also building out another store. So, I mean, he's fantastic. Yeah.
So I've seen images, and it may have been of hydroponic indoor farming, and they're kind of stacked like in a warehouse. And I can't remember exactly how it worked.
It can be done like that for sure. I'll send you a 3-minute video of our operation too, so you can kind of see that. I should have sent you that before, but
yeah, cool. So, but is y'all's all?
Yeah, we're just one level right now.
Yeah, okay.
That has a lot to do with height.
Yeah. That
you have. So, you know, the good thing about our business as it stands now is it's very replicatable anywhere we want to go. All we have to do is find a warehouse to build another farm. It doesn't mean that we have to go, we don't have to go out and find farmland. We don't have to go out and find farmers with tractors and all that stuff. So when we do enter into the Mississippi medical market here shortly, we're just looking for real estate, looking for warehouse space.
Well, good. Let's take a break here, Collin, and pick up on that and about your growth plans moving forward when we get back. We would like to thank Modus for their support of the NXT Entrepreneur Podcast. Who is Modus? Modus is a facility services company that works in the e-commerce fulfillment industry across the United States. What do? They like to say they take it from the conveyor to the dock door. Well, what does that mean? It means that they're building the pick stations with the cable management. They're installing guardrails and bollards. They're putting down floor marking. They're putting up aerial signage. These guys build fencing systems, shelving systems, and racking systems. They also do rack recovery for when there's rack failures. They also install dock levelers and dock doors. Modus also installs ASRS systems, which is automated storage and retrieval systems, as well as other robotics projects. They've worked for the largest e-commerce retailers in the world, and they can work for you. If you need to find Modus, you can reach them online at modusmoves.com. And we are back with Collin Bercier. Collin, we're talking about Ounce of Hope, and you mentioned you're opening your second dispensary.
Yeah, in the next 3 weeks, we'll be grand opening our second location in East Memphis. So we're in Midtown Memphis right now. We're opening in East Memphis, and then headed into other markets.
Okay, so let's talk about that growth and what your thoughts are. Not, maybe we can start talking about like what is on the near horizon in your plans, but I wouldn't mind if you ventured into some of your longer term visions for this business.
Sure. Definitely have a long-term vision for this. Our next move outside of Memphis is going to be into the Mississippi medical market. If anybody's been following that, it's been a little bit of a debacle, but hopefully they're going to be calling a special session and addressing that. And so we should be getting some rules and regulations on that, and we'll go participate in there. But, also I hope to be in Louisiana one day. We can talk about Louisiana another time, but that's a challenging entrance into that market. But, long term, it would be Mississippi, Louisiana, Texas, possibly Florida.
It's interesting. We were talking during the break about how you did, a number of businesses at any one time in previous years, and I was like, it's kind of fascinating that you're down to one business now. Yeah. But as you explained, there's so many moving parts. It's like multiple businesses.
We're not just a cannabis company. We are at the moment, but particularly what we're doing with the fish and our own nutrients, this thing has potential to go off into many different directions. If we wanted to at any time, we could build out facilities just to harvest fish and just to harvest nutrients and sell those into the protein markets and into the nutrient markets. So there's always something going on. It's a juggling act. On top of that, we are expanding. And on top of that, I'm always raising money, because one of the other nuances of this industry, on top of not being able to advertise and not being able to process credit cards sometimes, although we have fixed that, but the banks don't loan us money. So we really count on investors, although we are actually self-funding ourselves right now after 2 years.
That's fantastic.
And to give a little bit of scope to that, our current operation And these numbers are just with the grow facility coming online about 4 months ago as far as revenue. But, the dispensary in Midtown, the one dispensary that's open right now, by the end of this year, and by the way, that dispensary is only 550 square feet. But we're going to do $2 million this year out of there.
Yeah.
If we keep the projected growth that we're going. And, the first of the year was a little bit of a lull with COVID, so our numbers were down, but we can't fit another person in that space right now. And that's really why I went out and built was so quick to go build another facility, is because we're running out of room, another dispensary.
It's interesting when you look at businesses that measure their revenues per square foot, like these big retail businesses, whether it's Chick-fil-A or Starbucks or whatever. And I imagine your industry is going to set some new records.
Yeah, we're definitely setting some records in Memphis. So it's been, it's 2 years feels like 10, but with all the challenges that we do have, and back to not being able to advertise, that poses another challenge, like with Planet Fitness and coffee, donuts, whatever it may be. There's a donut of the month. There's a coffee of the month. There's a gym membership of the month. Okay, post that on Facebook. Then go behind that ad, spend a couple of $1,000s, reach everybody. Can't do that. So I like that and I hate that because I hate it because it would be a lot easier if I could, obviously, and I love that because it forces us to be very creative with our marketing and our products. And if you come into our stores for the first time, you're probably going to leave with a couple of samples, some free samples, because we want you to try a few things.
That is cool. So I did one last question I had on Ounce of Hope was the meaning behind the name.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a play on ounce, maybe?
Yeah, of course. Of course there's a play on ounce. That part's pretty self-explanatory, but when you get to the hope part, that I'd have to take that back to my mom. And, watching the last 2 years of her life in a nursing home, bedridden, multiple medications, nothing's working, and just having no hope. There's no other options. There is an option out there, but it's illegal. And I can't bring it into the facility to let her try it, although I knew it would help her.
Not that it would cure her, but it would.
Oh, it's not going to cure MS.
Alleviate pain and discomfort.
Pain, discomfort, help her sleep, nausea, tremendous nausea with all those medications. So it would have made her quality of life a lot better. And so, that hope is what we hope people get when they come into our stores is, it's a common theme. People come into our shop and they say, I've tried everything, or I'm not taking narcotics, or I've tried everything and I'm just looking for something. And we have people come in that say, look, I've never tried cannabis before, but I'm not going to try narcotics. We have an epidemic. So that's what Ounce of Hope is. It's a multifaceted business and multifaceted meanings behind it. But it really all started with my mom. Yeah,
that's a great story, and it's a shame she didn't ever get to see you get the business to this point, or get some relief like you had a vision for.
No, but there's videos of her and I on the local news talking about this. So, she wherever she is in the universe, she's looking down and she sees it. So.
Yeah, that's super cool. Just wrapping up with a couple of questions here. I was thinking of, the skill set that it takes to be an entrepreneur, right? And how different is that? And I don't know the answer to this question, and you may not either. But how different is that from the skill set that it takes to be a serial entrepreneur? So, for example, when you started, you were in your solar business. You you would have defined yourself, and everyone may have defined you as an entrepreneur at that point. I mean, you're
A
going
lot of
around with
people said I was crazy.
yeah, but I mean, you're building a business from nothing.
Yeah,
right. You're
nothing.
sticking yard signs out across the city, and you made something of it. But then, as we discussed in the podcast, you got to the point where you're now in multiple businesses in numerous different industries. Clearly, what I would define as a serial entrepreneur. And so I'm thinking, well, Collin must be like super organized.
That's a lie. I wish I could say that. I mean,
that's not the case.
Collin has his own organization system, and it works for him.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way. It is not my wife's organization system, not even close. We're completely opposite, which is fantastic. It makes it work. But organization is, I've got my own. Yeah.
Well, I did ask her this question about you, and she said, you completely lack a fear of risk.
Yeah.
You have a pioneer spirit.
Okay.
And you're an eternal optimist. and I added to that.
You never want to talk about yourself, but yeah.
Well, I think those are the things that it takes.
Yeah.
And but I also added to that, like, it has to have something to do with an insatiable curiosity, right?
Man, I feel like I've lived the past 10 years or whatever it is, and been an entrepreneur trying to define that for myself. I'm a horrible employee. To a certain extent, when I first got into business, I love you get into business for money too. I love the money. And at this point in my life, I'm in business for the time it allows me with my family and the potential to allow me to spend majority of my time with my family, my kids, and my wife. So that is my goal. My goal with Ounce of Hope is to build out this infrastructure throughout the South and hopefully sell it.
Yeah.
10 years ago, Collin was so married to all of his businesses that he did not want to sell. Selling was a bad word, and until you have a fairly decent exit, you're like, man, everything kind of is for sale.
At the right price.
At the right price. So, and with Lauren's business, she's got her business is just on a rocket. So, we're really looking to provide ourselves with more time with each other and our kids.
Yeah, it's kind of
experiences with our kids.
It seems like from hearing your story that your focus has been able to shift from, like any entrepreneur starting out, like, how do I make a buck today? How do I pay my rent? To right now, you describe yourself as being a big picture guy and a long-term, with a long-term view. And that's kind of a nice transition, a nice journey. I mean, your thoughts on that?
Yeah. The cannabis industry in general, especially right now, we're seeing tons of mergers and acquisitions. I watched a acquisition of $60 million the other day from a marijuana company that literally is just a marketing white label machine. They've done a hell of a job, but I sit back and I say, well, we offer so much more than that. So what are we worth? And then, not to mention, there was another acquisition of a nutrient company on the hydroponic side of like $180 million the other day, and I'm like, what? We're also a nutrient company. So I knew getting into this industry that if I can build out the infrastructure, which we've proved our model already, we're going to do, I don't know, when the new store opens, we may end up somewhere around 2.5 million this year. And so we've proved the model, and all we have to do is move forward now. So I definitely see an exit down the future. And I think the exit should it come, will be when they legalize it federally. Because right now, a lot of the big guys, big tobacco, big alcohol, big equity, private equity groups are staying back because marijuana is still considered illegal. So when that laxes or that changes, they'll start coming in. And what they want to do is they don't want to come in and build out infrastructure. They want to come in immediately and buy infrastructure. And we have that.
Yeah. Man, very cool. Very excited for you. And it looks like you got a bit of a rocket ship yourself there.
I think so.
So fascinating what you and your wife have going on in the business world. So very unique. And congratulations to y'all and best of success. Thank you for coming in. Enjoyed talking with you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
It's been great.
Thanks, Collin. I so enjoyed that conversation with Collin. I really appreciate how raw and open and real he was, telling the stories about his childhood, the challenges, the troubles that he got into, the difficulty in his family life. And, I think when you look at Collin today, you can see someone that's been very successful. He's had great success in business, but he is a realist. I think he really wants people to understand, the real Collin and where he came from and the challenges that were involved. And more importantly, that just simply not everything went smooth. Even in business, there were some of those entrepreneurial endeavors that were less successful than others. So I really appreciate him sharing that with us. I also appreciate the fact that he has done so much in the way of being a serial entrepreneur in different fields. And it's that pioneer spirit, and going and maybe not knowing anything about a new opportunity, but digging in, learning about it, being eternally curious and optimistic. And it's led, after all these years, to a life of success and a life of doing what he generally loves to do. So great story. Really appreciate him coming in. Fascinated by the dynamic duo that he and his wife are in their business endeavors. So it was great to get to know both of them. So we appreciate you guys watching, and we will catch you next time. We would like to thank our title sponsor, B1 Bank. They can be found online at b1bank.com. The Next Entrepreneur is produced by Propel Productions. You can find more information at propelyourstory.com. Don't forget to subscribe to the Next Entrepreneur Podcast and hit the bell for notifications. You can also follow us on social media. The links are in the description below.